Did you know that retiring with $2 million in your traditional 401k or IRA could be costing you an additional $700,000 in taxes in retirement? In this video, I'm going to break down for you how those traditional tax-deferred retirement accounts aren't saving you any money. In fact, they're one of the leading causes as to why Americans today can't retire because they forgot to factor out owing taxes on that ending balance. First, we need to understand the trend of historical taxes here in the US. If you take a look at this chart from taxpolicycenter.org, it shows the highest marginal tax rate per year over the past 110 years. 401ks were created back in 1978 when the highest marginal tax rate was at 70%. Now, of course, deferring your taxes back then made sense because nobody wanted to pay an unnecessary 70% in taxes. But over the years, the tax rates started to be reduced down to where they're at about 37% today, which is nearly half of what it was back in 1978. So again, deferring your taxes made sense for people working back then who are retiring today. But unfortunately, for Americans saving today with the intent to retire 30 years from now, they might not get so lucky. The US just crossed over $37 trillion in debt and counting, and with programs like Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid drastically underfunded, it is projected by economists that taxes have nowhere to go but up 30 years from now. Now, if we just assume taxes stay the same, if someone were to retire with $2 million in a traditional 401k or IRA, and they wanted to take out income to live off of that in retirement, that would land them owing about 25% in taxes between state and federal. And let's just say that they live for 25 years, well, they're going to be paying about $850,000 in taxes in retirement. Compared to if they just paid their taxes up front, they would be paying a measly $150,000 in taxes because they would be landing in the 0% tax bracket at retirement, ultimately saving them $700,000 in taxes in their golden years. Okay, so what type of an account can give you this kind of a tax break? The one I like, it's called an IUL, which is an indexed universal life. Now, an IUL is not a traditional retirement plan. It's actually not an investment at all. It's just simply a permanent life insurance policy. Yes, a life insurance policy. And it's amazing because it has the ability to grow this cash value component behind the life insurance that is accessible to you at any time, at any age in the future without paying any penalties or taxes. And it grows mirroring a stock market index of your choosing, like the S&P 500, which I know you're familiar with in your 401k. The only difference is when the market goes up, your account value is going to grow, but when it falls, you don't lose any money. The insurance company assumes all the risk. Now, if this is at all confusing to you, I will link 2 videos at the end that will teach you a little bit more about how it works. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, why an IUL over Roth 401k or IRA? Well, yes, Roth 401ks and IRAs do grow your money accessible in retirement, all tax-free because you are paying your taxes up front. There's a lot of limitations around them. With Roth IRAs, you cannot contribute more than $7,000 a year if you're under the age of 50 or $8,000 a year if you are over the age of 50. And there's income restrictions on contributions. And honestly, you're going to need to save a lot more money than that to get to an equivalent of $2 million in a tax-deferred retirement account by the time you retire. And with a Roth 401k, unfortunately, not every employer offers them just yet. But with an IUL, anyone can get access to one. You just have to be healthy enough to get approved because there is an insurance component to it. Okay, so how do these accounts look compared side by side? Let's say we have a male that is 35 years old. Let's call him Jim. And let's say that he is saving $20,000 pre-tax every year into his traditional 401k through work, and his goal is to retire at age 65, which is 30 years from now. And Jim is a novice investor, meaning he isn't actively managing his 401k. He just chooses a simple target date mutual fund that is going to perform mediocre at best, averaging him 7% over the 30 years that he is saving into this account for retirement. Now, Google AI says the average 401k will perform somewhere between 5 to 8% over a 30-year span, so we're pretty much right on track. Now, Jim could expect to have an ending balance in retirement of approximately $2 million tax deferred. But keep in mind, when we are in retirement, we can't afford to take on any risk, and we should be in things that are more conservative because we don't have time to make up any losses. So traditionally, you will see a majority of portfolios average somewhere around 5% per year in retirement. Now, if Jim plans on living for 25 years in retirement until he turns 90, and let's say he wants to fully deplete this account, living his best life, taking out all of his money by the time he turns that age, he could anticipate bringing in about $136,000 pre-tax every single year, which, according to NerdWallet, would land him in the 24% federal tax bracket, marginal tax rate. Now, of course, he's not paying 24% in taxes on all of that $136,000. He's only paying 24% in taxes on any income he earns above $103,000. You can calculate your average federal tax rate by going to bankrate.com, plugging in all these numbers, and what you'll see here is Jim's anticipated average federal tax rate would be approximately 17%. Now we still need to factor out state taxes. And state taxes can range drastically in America. They could be as low as 1% all the way up to 13%. So let's just assume that Jim is paying an average of 8% per year in state taxes. Added up, that means that he's going to owe a total of 25% every single year in state and federal taxes. So if he's taking in $136,000 minus 25%, which is approximately $34,000, he would be left with about $102,000 net per year after taxes. Now, if we compare this to an IUL, assuming Jim is a healthy 35-year-old that's a non-smoker getting a $300,000 death benefit, he's going to pay his 25% in taxes up front. So instead of saving $20,000 a year pre-tax, he's going to save $15,000 a year post-tax, meaning he's paying that $5,000 a year every single year in taxes up front. Now, if you take a look at this chart, most IULs have a 20-year look back of somewhere between an 8 to a 9% interest rate earned per year. Unfortunately, the illustration software will not allow us to illustrate higher than a 6.5% interest rate. So you're gonna have to roll with me on this. But assuming he earns 6.5% interest every single year, Jim could expect to see an ending balance of approximately $1.2 million accessible tax-free inside of his IUL. Now, I know that looks significantly less than the 401k because it is. But another very unique feature IULs have is we don't need to worry about transitioning into more conservative investments in retirement because an IUL is not an investment. It's not actually invested in the stock market. You're just mirroring it. So you can still see high rates of return like 8 or 9% in retirement, or for the sake of this example, 6.5%. Now, similar to what we did with the 401k, if Jim wanted to fully deplete this account by the time he turns 90, assuming that's when he passes away, Jim could expect to receive an income stream in retirement of about $128,000 every single year, and that's tax-free. Now to recap, if Jim were to save into his 401k over his IUL, he is projected to pay over 5.5 times more taxes in retirement through the 401k, paying a total of $850,000 in taxes compared to just a measly $150,000 in taxes. Which one sounds better? Remember, tax deferred just means tax delayed. You're still going to owe those taxes at some point, and you're probably going to end up owing even more taxes in retirement if taxes go up. Now, while IULs sound amazing, they're not amazing for everybody. I recommend that you connect with a licensed tax professional and a licensed insurance agent like myself before you do anything. And I've also linked 2 videos here, so if you want to learn more about IULs, you can figure out more about how they work. Make sure you share this video with anyone you know that has a 401k. Subscribe so you don't miss another video teaching you what to do with your money. And I'll catch you back here next week on YouTube.